bumper to the splitter and it fits perfectly. Just the bolts now to hold it all in place, and once this bumper's all built up, we can finally fit it to the car. Bugatti on the road.
Somewhere inside a wrecked Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport was a piece of damage that Bugatti's own inspection never fully accounted for. To find it, Matt Armstrong had to do something the manufacturer said couldn't be done outside 2 facilities in the entire world: split the car's carbon fiber monocoque in half, using little more than a 2-post lift and a workshop garbage can. What he uncovered underneath would end up changing Bugatti's mind entirely. Was the manufacturer's warning about safety or about something else? This video breaks down exactly what that split revealed. How a $6 million hypercar became scrap. The story begins not with Matt Armstrong, but with another content creator entirely. Alex Gonzalez, known online as FX Alex GYT, was the original owner of the Chiron Pur Sport in question.
The owner of this car, Bugatti Chiron, and then I had this one. I've been a follower of Bugatti. I've been a brand representative of Bugatti.
One of the rarest and most track-focused variants Bugatti has ever produced. Valued at roughly $6 million in pristine condition. Only 60 examples were ever built, each one representing the outer edge of what a road-legal hypercar can be. During a stunt, the car suffered a serious accident. The front end absorbed the brunt of the impact. Airbags deployed in an instant. Carbon fiber cracked under forces it was never designed to withstand in that direction. Headlights, hood, wings, and the unmistakable horseshoe grille, the single most recognizable symbol in the hypercar world, were all destroyed within seconds. Repair estimates for parts alone reportedly reached $1.7 million, a figure that would make most owners simply walk away and let the insurance company handle the rest. But is walking away really an option when the car in question is one of only 60 on the entire planet? For Gonzalez, the mathematics of ownership had shifted the moment the crash happened, yet the emotional calculation hadn't shifted nearly as much. This wasn't just an expensive machine anymore. It was a piece of automotive history that, if scrapped, would reduce an already impossibly small production run down by 1 more unit, permanently. Still, the situation only grew more complicated once Bugatti sent its own expert to inspect the damage.
This is probably the most gangster thing Bugatti. See, the majority of the damage is done in the front of the vehicle.
Flown in directly from France, the technician examined the wreck in person and declared it a total loss, then structurally compromised beyond what the manufacturer considered safe to repair under any circumstances. The Chiron was issued a salvage title and sent to a Copart auction, the same channel where wrecked ordinary sedans are bought by scrap yards, parts harvesters and back-alley rebuilders working on machines worth a few $1,000s. Except this was no ordinary car, and everyone involved knew it. Here's where the story takes its first real turn. Bugatti reportedly locked the vehicle's identification number in its internal system, a quiet but devastating move that meant no authorized dealership anywhere in the world could sell replacement parts for this specific chassis under any circumstances. For most vehicles, a detail like that wouldn't matter much. There would always be a salvage yard, a generic supplier, or a compatible part from another make. For a Bugatti, where nearly every component is proprietary, custom machined in small batches, or shared only with a handful of other cars in existence,
The rear crash bar area. Unlike a normal aluminium or steel crash bar, the Bugatti has a sort of extended one with carbon fibre, the rear of Alex's car.
A locked VIN functions closer to a death sentence than a bureaucratic inconvenience. The only path back to the road, according to the manufacturer, ran through its own factory floor in Molsheim, France, at a cost that would rival buying an entirely different Chiron outright. It was into this exact situation that Matt Armstrong arrived. Already known across the automotive world for resurrecting cars that dealerships and insurance adjusters had long since given up on, Armstrong had spent years building a channel around exactly this kind of project, taking machines other people had written off and proving piece by piece that the write-off was premature. Fans of his channel had watched him work through BMWs, Lamborghinis, and a long list of supposedly hopeless cases, each one building the same quiet reputation. If there was a way back to running condition, Armstrong would probably find it. Booking a flight to Miami almost the moment he heard the Pur Sport was headed toward auction wasn't really a leap of faith for him. It was simply the next entry in a pattern he had followed for years. Even getting to the workshop proved to be its own small disaster. On the way there, a Chevrolet cut across traffic and collided with a Ferrari being driven by one of Armstrong's own team members.
So I went to the last resort and contacted Ferrari. I just need a bit of advice with this 296, but because this car hasn't been repaired by Ferrari,
an early and almost cinematic sign that this particular project was going to fight back before the real work had even begun. Undeterred, Armstrong pressed forward anyway, determined to do what Bugatti itself had just declared, publicly and on the record, to be impossible. Bugatti's warning to the world. To understand why Armstrong's decision mattered so much, it helps to understand exactly what Bugatti was warning against. Because this was not simply a manufacturer being difficult for the sake of protecting its brand image, at least not entirely. Bugatti CEO Mate Rimac took to social media directly to address the growing conversation, stating plainly that the repairs required for this specific Chiron exceeded what any independent shop could safely perform. According to Rimac, the shattered gearbox housing, combined with a carbon fiber monocoque that may have suffered structural damage in the crash.
Monocoque is quite special for several reasons. First of all, it's the biggest carbon fiber piece in the industry.
Meant the car needed equipment and expertise available at only 2 facilities anywhere in the world. Why would splitting a car in half require that level of specialization? The answer lies in the way the Chiron is actually built. Its chassis is constructed around a single-piece carbon fiber tub, a design philosophy borrowed directly from Formula One rather than conventional road cars. Unlike a steel-bodied vehicle, where a slightly imperfect repair might simply mean a panel doesn't line up quite right, a mistake on a carbon fiber monocoque,
Carbon fiber seats with custom-made foam and leather pieces and everything,
can compromise the entire structural integrity of the car. The very thing standing between a driver and catastrophe at speeds well over 200 miles per hour. Viewed through that lens, Rimac's warning wasn't just corporate caution dressed up in technical language. It was, at least in his own framing, a genuine safety concern about what happens when a machine engineered to Formula One tolerances gets handled with garage-grade equipment and best intentions. Rimac didn't stop there either. He also addressed a separate but closely related controversy that had been swirling online for weeks. Claims that Bugatti dramatically overcharges for parts and routine service.
Bugatti Rimac is a very profitable company, so therefore we want to, of course, raise the performance and quality and everything to the highest possible level.
With some figures for a simple oil change reportedly reaching $20,000 in videos and comment sections. Rimac pushed back on the more inflated numbers circulating online, explaining that the sheer complexity of the car's engineering justified costs that might otherwise look absurd on paper. A dry sump oil system with 16 separate drain plugs, for instance, isn't something a quick service shop can handle in 20 minutes on a Saturday morning. Still, underneath the parts pricing debate, he confirmed the broader point that had started the entire conversation in the first place. Bugatti would not be providing parts or factory support for this particular rebuild, at least not yet. If Armstrong or Gonzalez wanted proper factory-level repairs, the invitation stood to fly the car to Molsheim. Outside of that, they were entirely on their own. That left Armstrong with a decision that boiled down to something remarkably simple, even if the consequences attached to it were anything but. He could accept defeat and let a genuinely rare piece of automotive engineering disappear into a warehouse indefinitely, gathering dust as a cautionary tale about hypercar ownership. Or he could attempt something that the chief executive of the very company that built the car had just said, publicly, could not be done safely outside of 2 buildings on the entire planet. There was no quiet middle option here. Whatever came next would be watched, scrutinized, and second-guessed by an audience that already understood exactly how high the stakes were. There's also a broader context worth sitting with here, one that goes beyond a single wrecked Chiron. Bugatti has spent decades cultivating an image built on exclusivity and absolute precision, a brand where every car is essentially handmade, every buyer is personally vetted, and every service interaction happens on the manufacturer's terms rather than the owner's. That exclusivity is part of what makes a Bugatti a Bugatti. It's also exactly the kind of control that a viral rebuild video threatens to unravel, one clip at a time, in front of millions of viewers who had never previously questioned whether a $6 million car repair really needed to cost what the manufacturer said it did. When a garbage can beat the factory, what Armstrong's team eventually traced the fault to was not a mystery part or an obscure one-off failure. It was something with a name, a part number, and, this is the detail that changes the entire story, a documented recall attached to it. A diagnostic scan returned the message, no communication with the fuel pump control module. The team's first hope was simple, a blown fuse, just like the gearbox pump months earlier. They pulled the rear panel to access the engine bay fuses and tested every one. All of them were fine. Several tests later, the real cause emerged. The central fuel pump control module itself was sending an incorrect signal, a fault entirely internal to the part. Armstrong searched the part number and found something that turned this from a repair story into something closer to an accountability story. The number matched an official recall document covering 72 Bugatti Veyrons and Grand Sports affected by this exact failure. The recall called for the fuel tank control unit to be replaced with a revised version, running updated software labeled V3.03. Armstrong checked his own car's module. It already had that exact revised version installed, and it had failed anyway. Sit with that for a moment. This was not a car running on outdated, pre-recall hardware that nobody had gotten around to updating. This was the fixed version, the part Bugatti itself issued specifically to resolve this failure, breaking in exactly the way the original part was supposed to stop breaking. Whatever caused this fault, the manufacturer's own remedy did not solve it. What happened next may be the most damning sequence in the entire saga, and it has nothing to do with engineering at all. Armstrong called Bugatti London. Nobody answered. He called the service center directly. Nobody answered. He called Bugatti Paris, a location that claims to operate Monday through Saturday, on a Monday, at midday. Nobody answered there either. To make sure it wasn't simply a bad day for phone lines everywhere, he called a rival manufacturer's service department as a comparison point. That call connected without issue. Then, almost as if to prove a point neither side intended to make, Armstrong called Bugatti's sales line. They called him back within minutes. The message could not have been clearer, if it had been written on a banner. Buying a Bugatti gets you a call back before you've finished dialing. Needing one repaired on a part the company already knows is defective gets you silence. When Bugatti's team eventually did engage, after some persistence getting through to a genuine service manager, the news was that a replacement fuel pump control module was in stock at company headquarters in Molsheim, France. The price: $59,358. The car would need to be brought physically to an official service center for the part to be fitted, a process the company estimated would take around 2 weeks. Bugatti has previously defended pricing like this by pointing to the economics of building at hypercar scale. The company does not benefit from the same volume discounts as a mass manufacturer, and highly specialized components, built for closed-loop systems, are inherently expensive to engineer and produce in small numbers. That may well be true as a general principle. It does not, however, explain why a part specifically issued to correct a known recall failed in exactly the way it was designed to prevent.
Bugatti, we just like designing a car for not the next 5 years. It's like a car we're gonna last forever.
Nor why the phone number for fixing that failure rings out, while the phone number for selling another car answers on the second ring. Think about what this actually means for anyone who owns one of these cars, present or future. The sticker price of a hypercar has never been the real cost of ownership. Everyone who buys into this world understands there will be servicing bills most people would consider a down payment on a home. What Armstrong's Veyron reveals is something different from cost. It is a question of trust. If a manufacturer's own recall fix does not resolve the fault it was issued to fix, and the support line meant to help you through that failure does not answer, then the value you are actually paying for is not engineering. It is access to a relationship that only functions in one direction, toward the sale, and away from everything that comes after it. That is the story sitting quietly behind the headlines. Not a crashed hypercar and a feuding CEO. A working car, a documented recall, a fix that did not fix anything, and a company that seems considerably more interested in what you're buying than in what you already own. Inside the Chiron's hidden destruction, splitting the Chiron open did more than prove a point. It exposed problems that neither Bugatti's initial inspection nor Armstrong's own expectations had fully accounted for. Once the front and rear sections were finally separated,
Bugatti didn't think that we were going to be able to separate this car in half.
the true scale of the collision's impact became visible in a way that photographs of the exterior damage never could have shown. The engine had been pushed forward from the sheer force of the crash, crushing coolant lines and denting components that surrounded it on every side. It was a sobering reminder that a wrecked hypercar isn't simply a cosmetic project waiting patiently for new panels and fresh paint. It's a puzzle of hidden, cascading damage that only reveals itself layer by layer, and often only after the point of no return. The most critical discovery, though, was a fractured aluminum mount connecting the engine to the gearbox. This single component, engineered specifically to fail in a controlled way during a crash, redirecting force through the body of the car and limiting damage elsewhere in the process, had done exactly what it was designed to do, and paid the price for it in the process. Fortunately, the news wasn't entirely bad. The main engine block and transmission had largely avoided catastrophic damage, a small but meaningful mercy in a project that had already tested everyone's patience for months. Was this the moment Bugatti's original warning was proven right, or was it the moment it was proven wrong? In truth, it was probably a little of both. The discovery validated just how serious the underlying damage really was. This was never going to be a simple bumper and headlight repair, no matter how much confidence Armstrong projected on camera. But it also gave his team exactly what they needed to move forward: a clear, specific, solvable problem, rather than a vague warning about general risk floating somewhere in the background. With the fractured mount finally identified, the entire project shifted in tone. It became less about defying Bugatti for its own sake.
Bugatti, he's nominated me to repair it.
Start getting your flights, mate.
And that challenge has become increasingly difficult as Bugatti refused to sell us parts.
And more about methodically solving one engineering puzzle at a time, the same way any serious restoration eventually has to. That same period brought its own share of genuine scares, too. As footage of the disassembled car circulated online, sharp-eyed viewers spotted what appeared to be a hairline crack near the gearbox solenoids and quickly flagged it to Armstrong in the comments. Hairline cracks in a component like this are no small concern. They can widen gradually under stress and lead to far more serious failures much later in the build, often without warning. Armstrong addressed the rumor directly on camera, running a finger along the mark and noting that it didn't actually feel like a crack at all, but more like a thin layer of residue. A bit of spray cleaner and a cloth quickly confirmed it. The alarming crack was nothing more than dirt. Still, Armstrong thanked his viewers for flagging it in the first place, acknowledging that a genuine hairline fracture left unnoticed could have escalated into a far more serious and far more expensive problem later on, when it would have been much harder to catch. Moments like that revealed something else about the project, beyond the mechanical work itself. An audience that size doesn't just watch passively, it participates. Thousands of viewers, some with genuine engineering backgrounds and some simply obsessive about the car, were effectively acting as an unpaid quality control team, scanning every frame of footage for anything that looked out of place. In a strange way, the very publicity that Bugatti seemed wary of may have also been quietly protecting the project from mistakes slipping through unnoticed. A private factory repair happens behind closed doors, with no one watching but the technicians involved. This repair was happening in front of an audience large enough to catch a stray shadow on camera.
Yeah, now all of this comes to a stop now, because we've actually got to repair it.
Instead of continuing to wait on Bugatti's cooperation. That single prospect appears to have shifted the entire conversation almost overnight. Rather than simply reiterating his original position, Mate Rimac engaged further, ultimately confirming that Bugatti would lift the parts blacklist that had frozen the project for months at a time. The company also reportedly reduced its original repair estimate, even while maintaining some lingering reservations about the long-term integrity of a car repaired outside its own factory walls, under its own supervision. What actually changed Rimac's mind? Perhaps it was the sheer visibility of the project by this stage. Armstrong's rebuild had become one of the most talked-about automotive stories online, drawing attention from far beyond the usual circle of hardcore supercar enthusiasts and into mainstream car culture entirely. Perhaps it was simply the undeniable fact that the team had already proven capable of handling far more, with far less, than Bugatti had initially given them any credit for. Either way, the partial thaw in Bugatti's position gave Armstrong's team the room to work more efficiently going forward, even if full factory-level support never fully materialized in the end. With the fractured mount finally identified, the team turned to a solution that echoed the same do-it-yourself spirit that had defined the entire project from its very first day. Rather than waiting indefinitely for an official replacement that might never come, they had the damaged mount three-dimensionally scanned, converted into a precise digital model, and machined into an improved replacement using computer-controlled precision tools. Bugatti's closed parts ecosystem.
How did the buyer get parts to repair that?
So from what I hear, I can't confirm or deny this at all, but from what I've heard is that that car is still not repaired.
Meant that many smaller components still weren't available through normal channels. So the team began painstakingly cross-referencing part numbers, eventually discovering that items like spark plugs and various filters were actually manufactured by third-party specialists rather than by Bugatti itself. 2 replacement airbags, remarkably, were found to be compatible from an entirely different manufacturer's compact model. Custom radiators were built completely from scratch to replace the 10 separate units the Chiron requires, a detail that surprises most people who assume a single radiator does the job. A specialist exhaust shop was brought in to fabricate an entirely bespoke system for the rebuilt car, one that would ultimately give it a sound unlike any factory Chiron on the road. Then came the moment the entire project had been quietly building toward for months. With the front and rear sections finally reunited and secured, using more than a dozen titanium bolts, the team reconnected the coolant, fuel, intercooler, and engine control systems, genuinely uncertain whether months of improvised repairs would actually hold together under real operating conditions. Would an engine that had been violently pushed forward in a collision, stripped down to its individual components, and reassembled entirely by hand in a private garage, actually run again, as if none of this had ever happened? In March of 2026, it did exactly that. The Chiron fired up for the first time since the crash, its new custom exhaust giving it a deeper, more distinctive sound than it had ever produced from the factory floor. The car remained far from road legal at that point, with plenty of finishing work still stretched out ahead of the team. But the milestone itself was undeniable. A machine that one of the most respected hypercar manufacturers on the planet had declared beyond independent repair was, against every single warning issued, alive again. The Bugatti Chiron rebuild was never just about rescuing a $6 million hypercar. It became a global debate about ownership, engineering, and who should control the future of the cars we buy. Did Matt Armstrong prove that skill and determination can overcome factory limitations, or were Bugatti's warnings justified all along? Whatever your view, this extraordinary project challenged assumptions about repair, exclusivity, and innovation. Now we want to hear from you. Was Bugatti right, or did Armstrong achieve the impossible? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible engineering stories.